So real quick, my name's Cody Klein, and I started JAG Roofing and Sheet Metal when I got out of the military. And I'd say like most roofers in our industry, I didn't have some grand scheme or grand plan of how I was gonna make money as I started installing metal roofs. But getting out of the military, I did have bills, right? And I had a girlfriend at the time that's now my wife. And so I had to figure it out. I had a buddy that was dating a chick that her dad owned a steel erection company. So we traveled all across the state, like putting up these steel buildings. And there was one particular crew that worked for this guy's company that was responsible for laying out the blanket insulation, putting down all of the steel panels. And I just so happened to get put on that crew. Well, the work sucked, the pay sucked, but I did realize that the guys that were closing those deals were the guys showing up to the job site and had nice trucks. They weren't wearing the types of clothes that I was wearing every day. They weren't wearing tool bags. They were, seemed to be that their quality of life was a little bit better. And so it was that situation that opened my eyes as to like, oh, okay, this roofing thing is like the trades are good, right? There's opportunity here, but it's like, I think there's levels to this. So I went from installing, I moved out of that company into sales for a couple other companies and ultimately started my own roofing company, which turned into JAG Roofing and Sheet Metal. In the beginning, early days of JAG, it was just me and a couple buddies, and we were kind of a ragtag group of like, hey, let's get any type of project we can get our hands on. And so in the beginning, we would knock doors and do residential storm claims, or even take on projects for other roofing companies and kind of like broker subcontractors just to pretty much make a dollar anywhere we could. Now, over time, what started to happen, not by any sort of intention, but kind of accidentally, is like as we did these other opportunities, we would have referrals would come in, this guy would tell that guy about what we did for him and so on and so forth. And by accident, our client base started to mature. We went from doing residential shingle roofs to specialty residential roofs. And as we segued into doing standing seam and doing some of these specialty roof systems, we transitioned, it was kind of a gateway into the commercial world. And as soon as we started doing what I would consider service work now as commercial, tenant repair or tenant upfits, things like that, for these other companies, we started to kind of make a name for ourselves. And so we were the guys that would come in and solve the hardest issues, the stuff that these other quote unquote roofing companies like sales organizations just couldn't figure out or didn't have the acumen to do those types of projects. All the way up to doing projects on these military bases like Fort Lee over in Richmond, Virginia. We did a hotel roof on Fort Buchanan out in Puerto Rico. And it's like, not by design, but kind of by default, we grew and matured our customer base, but kind of matured our business along the way. All the way through, it was like a string of, a series of events, if you will, of us getting lucky and kind of just throwing our hat in the ring in situations where it wasn't warranted that we got the job, that we were awarded the project. We were just the guys that like instilled the confidence on the front end and then just figured it the heck out. And so I only share this not to brag or boast and say like, oh, like awesome, we got lucky, getting jobs, maturing our client base, going through an acquisition, but more so to share that like, I wish somebody in the beginning would have told me that luck isn't the greatest strategy, because I'm sure I could have gotten a lot of lessons without the scars to have proof of the lessons. So most roofing companies, they hear commercial roofing and they think it's just like one thing, that commercial roofing is kind of a blanket statement for all types of commercial, but it's not at all. It's actually 5 different distinct categories, at least the way I break it down. And every single one of those different categories has different types of customers, different types of margin, different types of barriers to entry, different types of headaches ultimately that you have to deal with. And I'm going to share the way I see this so that you can not only understand what they are, but more importantly, understand where you're at in your commercial roofing journey with your commercial division or your commercial roofing company, and ultimately figure out how to continue leveling up and maturing your customer base, maturing your company to building the type of business that actually peels off the most profit, is the least amount of headaches. All business has headaches, but the least amount of headaches, and build a scalable operation so that you can understand like what it looks like to actually have a business that not only runs without you, but also like grows without having the founder's touch in every little crack and crevice of the business. And so like I said, most of us talk about commercial roofing like it's the one thing, or that it's like all the same, but the reality is like it's almost like 5 different businesses. And so the way I see it is like the cash flow issues, the ups and downs, the inconsistencies inside of commercial roofing, the long sales cycles, all the things that I've already kind of mentioned. It's like Most of those things happen because you're either mixing these two or three or four of these different types of commercial roofing businesses together, or just going all in on the hardest ones. All right, so the first type of commercial roofing business that I want to talk about is new construction. And so in new construction, if we're lucky, we're typically looking at like 60 to 90-day payment terms, and it's all specified work. And just to define like what is specified work, if you've never understood that, it's actually its own type of commercial roofing. It's like another division we're going to talk about, but it's where you're bidding against everyone on doing projects, but on buildings that don't exist yet today, right? So the specified work is typically specified by an architect or someone on the developer's team, just really articulating like what materials to utilize, what warranties they're expecting, and so on and so forth. And I'll be completely honest with you, this is where cash flow goes to die. When people talk about the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs of commercial roofing, a lot of times that's around new construction. And so commercial roofing business type number 2 is what we call tenant improvement. And tenant improvement is typically driven by general contractors. Like those are the guys that are usually subcontracting you in, like bringing you in on the job to help them fulfill on the different trades. So for us specifically, that'd be roofing. And so in the tenant improvement type projects, you're never the decision maker. You're like working around other people's calendars. It's like they might tell you, hey, we're gonna have you guys come out in 8 weeks, but then 8 weeks comes and 2 days before the job, they're like, oh, hey, the HVAC guys or the other trades are still in your way. You're gonna have to wait for the masonry guys, and then they need you to not come out tomorrow. They need you to come out 3 weeks later, and it can be an entire mess. So your margins in this, just like new construction, because we're working as a subcontractor to general contractors, a lot of times it's like the clients are benefiting by the lower our margins are, right? The general contractor makes more money every time we go lower on our price. And so tenant improvement, just like new construction and the commercial type of business we're going to talk about next as well, they all squeeze you every single time. It's a race to the bottom, and most guys in these arenas are just seeing how fast they can get there. And the third type is specified work or bid work. And just like the other two that are really fun when we're racing to the bottom on price, specified work is the exact same. And the only difference in specified work or bid work, like what separates that from new construction or the tenant improvements, is just that typically it is a municipality, it's a public bid, meaning that even more people know about it than just whoever the GC has in their Rolodex. And again, just like the other two, the lowest number typically wins. And so your expertise in these situations, it's hard to add value to the job because they don't always know you. There's not always a relationship, and I hate to say it, but your expertise is almost irrelevant in the situation. So yeah, it's just one of those things where like only the price matters. Now the fourth type is what I call private and negotiated work, and quite contrary to the new construction, the tenant improvements, and the specified work, there's actually a lot of benefits, and I think it's where a lot of the sweet spot of commercial roofing actually lives. In these situations, more often than not, we're actually going direct to the building owner or getting to work with a property management company. And so these are very heavily weighted on the relationship that we're able to build, and this is where I think a lot of businesses don't jump into this. There's a huge and high barrier to entry into private and negotiated work because it takes real work to build those relationships. Like you have to be, partly at least, a sales organization that is focused on just generating the relationships and then nurturing those relationships so that you can get the big jobs. A lot of times these private and negotiated type re-roof projects are not handed to somebody that they just met. It's somebody that has nurtured the relationship for a long period of time. Now, the cool part about private and negotiated work is that you are paid for doing the hard work, right? There are better margins, they make faster decisions, and this, in my opinion, is where the real money in commercial roofing actually lives. Here's where things get really interesting. So the fifth type of commercial roofing that we're actually going to talk about is what I call service and maintenance work. And what's interesting and how these are interconnected is that service and maintenance work is what leads to the private and negotiated work. It's how we get our toe in the door and just get to show our value by taking care of issues, small issues before they become big issues. And ultimately, I think what I would say the goal of service and maintenance is, which is almost so backwards to most of the roofing industry, is that as a service and maintenance contractor, my goal has to be to you, the building owner or the property manager, to keep as much money in your pocket for as long as I possibly can, right? Quite backwards to how most roofers operate. But what that does is it instills trust. It allows us to still do small projects that are highly profitable along the way and just earn the right to get to do those re-roofs or those coatings projects when the time comes. And so the sweet spot of commercial roofing is level 4 and level 5. It's doing the private negotiated work and then doing what's necessary in order to be able to earn those opportunities. Now, if you look at your entire local service market, maybe that's a small town, or maybe it's the entire state, maybe it's the entire Midwest, maybe it's an entire region, maybe it's whatever that is for you. No matter what your service area is, if we look at the life cycle of a roof, on average, I would say a roof lasts about 25 years. And if that's true, across 25 years, 100% of the market would need to be replaced at some point. So on average, that 100% of the market divided by the 25 years is about 4% per year, give or take a percent. And if 4% of the market is ready to be replaced or needs some sort of major roof overhaul on the building of whatever it is, then what that means is that the other 96% still needs repairs, still needs maintenance, still needs some kind of love to basically continue functioning as intended. And the reason I say that is because I believe that most membranes or panels or shingles, or name the type of roof system, will last 25, 30, 40, 50 years sometimes. But the byproducts and the components of those membranes, panels, shingles, whatever system are not designed to last that long. We have caulkings and sealants that last 4 to 6 years. We have pitch pans that need to be touched up. We have flashings, penetrations, terminations, all designed to fail before the actual roof system itself does. I think most roofing companies would agree with that. But that means that if the roof is not ready for replacement, a lot of times we must go outbound. We must educate our clients around the fact that, hey, look, your roof system is not one thing, just like the commercial industry is not one thing. And we need to educate them that just like a car needs oil changes, tires rotated, wiper blade swap, even on a brand new vehicle, only after a few months, the roof's the exact same way. And since I've had this realization, I've been all about, for the last 4 or 5 years, just solely focused on how can we optimize the front end of our business, the lead generation, the inspection bookings, the asking better questions in the sales process to understand how businesses and business owners and property managers make decisions, being able to optimize the estimates and proposals around exactly what they're after, what problems they're trying to solve, and how they make decisions, and really trying to optimize that not only for process, but like how can we build the best tools possible to allow our sales reps to be able to do all the things, generate the opportunities, run the sales process, put their scopes together, inspect the roofs the same way across the board, where the business doesn't rely on me, the founder, to go walk every commercial opportunity. Like, what a bottleneck. And so what I'd like to do is kind of share some of those tools with you here. I'm going to open up Pandora's box and show you guys how we're starting to leverage even AI in the world of commercial roofing to help us find those ugly roofs that may not know they have issues yet, right? They might be somewhere in the middle of that life cycle of, somewhere between being brand new and needing to be replaced. I'll show you how we're systemizing our inspection process and allowing not only a veteran of the commercial roofing space to walk a roof and do the inspections, but even a guy brand new off the streets, only with a couple weeks of training, can hop up on the roof and be able to identify what's going on, which used to be a huge problem, right? We used to rely on a brainiac inside of our commercial roofing business that would either have to scour hundreds of photos from our inspections or actually go walk the roofs with our sales reps. No longer the case, and I'll show you exactly how that works. And then we're taking all of that information and we've created a database that allows our sales reps to basically scour a menu, just like you were at a restaurant, and pick what that roof needs off of this predetermined menu that has the materials, labor, all of our costs associated with actually doing the repairs. So when it comes time to pursue going after more service and maintenance work in order to get the privately negotiated and just like working for the building owners and the property managers and things like that, there's really 2 things that we can do. Number one, I always feel like the lowest hanging fruit is just going back to the projects where we've already done work in the past. So in my world, we leverage a process called the client reactivation strategy. And inside the client reactivation strategy, it's really simple. All we do is we create a list of our prior clients. We send out what we call the warranty inspection email, basically just saying like, hey, we want to come back out and re-inspect the work that we've already done in the past. And then while we're there, we don't just look at the work we did, we expand the scope of what we're looking at. We look at the entire roof, the entire system, the entire complex, depending on what it is. And then we essentially, if there's warranty issues that we find upon being there, then we would write up a ticket to take care of them, pro bono. But the idea is that like the roof probably has other issues. It has deferred maintenance that needs to be taken care of and other work that probably needs to be done because it's in that 96 percentile of the market where it still needs, like I said, the windshield wipers, the oil changes, tires rotated, of whatever that is for that exact roof system. But where things get really interesting is if and when we've worked through our entire list of past clients, or maybe we're just getting started in the roofing space and we don't even have past clients to go back to. The thing is, we want to start to hunt for ugly roofs. And so we've done this manually for years, where we would go to Google. We don't need any sort of, I'll be completely transparent with you, we don't need any sort of fancy software or fancy subscriptions. Like, you can do this totally pro bono and for free. And if you go to my website, commercialroofer.com, you can download the actual playbook on how to run an ugly roof hunting campaign or just how to do it. But what we did is, in the world of AI right now, within a short period of time, within months, you can create some really powerful tools. And so we've engaged some partners to help us build some of the tools I'm sharing with you guys here. And the first one being Ugly Roof AI. So the first thing we do, just like if we were going to go to Google Maps, is we would search the area where we want to actually hunt for ugly roofs, right? So that's going to take me to Carmel, California. Let's do Carmel, Indiana. And you'll see I already have a territory mapped out here in downtown Carmel. But if I wanted to create a new territory, I could hit new territory. I could basically say that I wanted it to be just like a perfect circle. And maybe I go to a more condensed area and I go to like, I don't know, Fishers, Indiana. And the cool part about this tool is like you can shrink your territory or you can make it a little bit larger to capture all of the commercial roofs within whatever area you want to work. I will tell you, it works. This specific tool, our specific tool, does work better the smaller the area you are because it's processing less data, right? So I typically do about a half-mile radius. Still, in a condensed area like that will give me hundreds of roofs to go look at. I would add a name here. So like I might call this like Fishers, Indiana, and then I could save that territory. Now the coolest part is like almost immediately, it starts throwing buildings from that area into our pipeline here, or I'm sorry, into a kind of like a review queue. And so I go to all of the pending buildings because it's asking me to go through this and essentially say, hey, is this an ugly roof that we want to pursue? And so for me, like that's a sloped roof. I'm going to reject that. I couldn't see anything crazy going on with it. Not rejecting it because it's a sloped roof, but just because it didn't look like anything crazy. Even here, it's like some are going to be ugly, some are not. And so right there, oh, perfect example. So the first two, right, I might actually reject that. And then I'll open up here, open up the image, double check. Okay, cool. Well, I might approve the modal or modern linen supply. And as soon as I approve the ugly roof, it immediately goes into my pipeline. So let's see if we can find, there it is, model linen supply. And so when I open it up here in my actual pipeline, the first thing it does is it actually generates a report. And so this is a PDF that you can either download or you could make edits to right off the rip. So AI is analyzing the image from what it can tell or what it can pull here from the image that it's looking at from Google Images. And it's saying what it notices, why it's worth a look for it to have us come out and at least take a look at the roof for them. And we'd be happy to put our eyes on it and do all of these things, right? And as a roofing sales rep, all I would do, like if I was going out to do my hunting for the day, or even if I was going to call and just offer to send the report over, I'm going to download all of these PDFs so that I have all of them like in a folder ready to go. And I know what buildings I'm actually hunting on the day, like who are my targets. And so the coolest part is like, as you move those opportunities through new leads, like to, let's say we move it to reached out, our scorecard actually keeps track of that. And so again, if you have past clients, utilize the client reactivation playbook to do that, or some version of that in your own company. And if you're looking to hunt the 96%, right, the roofs that probably don't even know that they have an issue, and you can come in and play superhero, like that's where you can kick the door open on these relationships and really start to grow by adding value on the front end. So not only in my roofing companies, but also in the Commercial Roofer University, we leverage some other lead generation plays. We do lunch and learns. We have how to work property managers to open up their entire portfolio after you get one inspection. But when you're just starting doing outbound, or like starting to really become some sort of like a sales focused organization on the commercial side of the business, you don't need anything more than the two plays that I've already shown you. Now, the next part is actually where it gets really interesting though, because not only do most roofing companies struggle to actually generate new inspections or inspections on a weekly basis, but they also struggle with having not necessarily a systemized sales team that goes out and does things the exact same way every single time they inspect a roof. It's more likely that you or the company you work for have a team of mercenaries that are kind of like this rogue team of sales reps, which I use that term kind of loosely, just going out and kind of doing your own thing. And so in our world, we're firm believers that, if we want to remove that owner or the owner's touch from like every part of the business, we have to have not just a system, but a proven system. And so this is our entire SOP on diagnosing the actual roof. There's two parts to it. Document A is just a conditions report, and document B is the field takeoff packet. And so when we hop up on a roof, when the time comes and we have all the information we need on the building owner or the property manager and the pain they're experiencing and how long they intend to be in that building or the intended use of the building and the pain that the leaks or the roof have caused or possibly the issues they've experienced with other roofing companies in the past. It's like once we have all of that information from doing the discovery process, the next step is to figure out like where is their roof in the actual life cycle of a roof. And so you'll notice that like once we get on the roof, our main goal with this conditions report is just to figure out, is it an A, is it a B, is it a C, is it a D, is it an F? And we allow those grades to steer us in the direction of like, what do we need to do next as a sales rep? And so I'll break it down really simply for you. If it's an A, a B, or a C, we're typically selling repairs. We want to take care of any deferred maintenance and then piggyback those repairs with a maintenance agreement. If it's a D, we're typically looking at more of a restoration type project, which would be, in our case, we like to do, if it's a metal roof, we'll do a flute fill with a recover. If it's a membrane, maybe we can just do another membrane, right? And if it's an F, well, I have a good buddy that says, if the roof's an F, you know what that F is standing for, right? And it's not a good word. In that situation, we're simply just selling a replacement. But no matter what we sell, just as a quick reminder, if it's an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F, no matter what we sell, we always piggyback every transaction with a maintenance agreement. Because at the end of the day, not only do we want new customers or do we want to get more customers, but we also want to get more from every customer, right? That's how we grow the business in a compounding way. This is the SOP that kind of explains it. But here's what it actually looks like in practice. So we take a look at the conditions report for, let's do shingles, because I feel like most people can speak this language. Our sales reps are hopping up on the roof. They are looking at these main components just to do a quick assessment. So they look at the shingle condition, the valleys, the ridges, all the different flashings, how the roof drains, the ventilation, the attic deck condition, all of those things. And we're grading them individually to ultimately give us the overall roof grade. And as you can see, the roof grade, like I said just a moment ago, actually tells the sales reps what to do next. This is a bit of my secret sauce, but I don't mind sharing. There are many roofing companies that talk about, oh, we're an insurance claims focused business, or we're a retail focused business. But the way we see the roofing business is that it's not one or the other, right? It's not binary. It's like, we are going to diagnose every single roof to monetize it in the way that gives us the least resistance. And so in storm markets, when we can take advantage of storms, when we know we can hit a home run out of the park, of course we're going to take advantage of the insurance process and play into it for what it is. And I say take advantage, but I just mean like leverage it for what it actually is, right? The building owner or the policy holder is paying on their side of the agreement, they're paying for the roof to be taken care of in an instance in which it should be. And the insurance company is agreeing to that same agreement, right? The same handshake deal that they have, in the policy. And so if there is storm damage observed, then we have a process that our team will go through for that. But in the instance that there is no insurance claim present, then we transfer to our diagnostic process, right? Which we've talked about a couple times now. We document our issues, anything we're seeing on the roof that we want to talk about in our conversation. And we call the next conversation when we hop down with this conditions report, we actually go back down and we talk to our point of contact about what we found on the roof. And all we're actually trying to do is get them to give us a green light on whether or not we should proceed forward with quoting the repairs, Or if they're like, I've had situations before where I've went down and I've said, hey, I actually think this is a repairable roof. And I've had property managers, on-site property managers tell me, hey, no worries. Like, we've already collected some bids. We're going to replace the thing. We have it in the budget. If I don't use it, I lose it, type of situation. And so in that situation, if they're like, hey, we're going to replace the roof, or if we found it was a D or an F and we need to do a larger project anyways, then we move into the document B, which is what we call the field takeoff. And so no longer are the days that guys are really sketching out roofs, and that's totally fine. But we utilize this area to actually paste an aerial image more often than not. So like before our guys go out on a roof, they'll take, either their roof R packet or their Eagle View or whatever and just add it to this packet, or they'll just grab a screenshot and throw it on here in case they need to like confirm measurements or whatever. And then the field takeoff gives us everything we need to actually inspect, scope, and be able to build an estimate on whatever that larger project is. The next piece of what I'm going to show you, like the next tool where things get really awesome for us, is like we have really adopted, actually first we acknowledged that the automobile industry is light years ahead of the roofing industry when it comes to service and maintenance. And so we built the exact same thing, but for the roofing industry. Okay, so we went through and we said, hey, for every single type of roof system, what are the, there's a finite number of components to all of these roof systems. And so it's like, if there's a finite number of things that are wrong, then there's probably a finite amount of repairs that could be done to them. And so we took that theory, from the automobile industry and created this repair budget calculator, if you will. The cool part is like, this does have majority of everything that you'll come across as a guy, walking the roof. But the issue becomes, what if your sales rep or inspector on the roof doesn't actually know what these line items mean? So the next tool we built in lieu of that is what we call the repair manual. Now, the repair manual is essentially a manual that breaks down every single one of those line items. So you'll see that just like the calculator, so if I switch back over here for a moment, we have general deficiencies, we have removal deficiencies, like line items for removal, line items for sheet metal, line items for metal roofing, shingle systems, and then all of the rest of like the low slope systems. And so we built our repair manual to be the exact same thing, right? So general deficiencies, tear off line items, sheet metal line items, and then all of the different roof systems. And so if I skip down here quite a ways, as a random example, I'll just show you one of the pages here. So we're on page 80 inside of the repair manual, and you'll notice that it's like, okay, we have the repair manual, we're in the EPDM section, and this specifically is a field wrap flashing with a target. Again, looking at this as a new sales rep or as a new roof inspector, you might not have any idea how that actually goes together. And not saying that you shouldn't be able to identify that, or you shouldn't work towards learning that, but there's no like hockey stick learning curve to just understanding, like overnight understanding commercial roofing, right? It's not going to happen. I've been walking commercial roofs for 14 and a half, almost 15 years as of this year. And I was on a roof just 2 weeks ago, a fiber tight system, and there were details that I had never seen before. So I called somebody up, right? And so in those instances, we want you to understand how to identify these things, why it happens, what's included inside of the actual repair manual for this line item, and what's not included. And the coolest part is like when you find something that's not included, like, oh, not only, do we need to field wrap this flashing, but there was water intrusion and the insulation's wet. Well, now it tells you go see remove and replace wet insulation and patch over, right? So that's just another line item here inside the calculator. I could have left it at that and said, hey, like this is pretty good. You're up on the roof. If there's something you don't know, flip through the manual, see what looks like it fits the best. But like I said, it's 2026, right? Depending on when you're watching this video. And we're able at this point to harbor the intelligence behind artificial intelligence. And so luckily, I already showed you guys Ugly Roof AI, but luckily I have a really cool team behind me, a really smart and intelligent team behind me that was able to kind of bring my idea to life in an identification tool. And so this tool that we have allows you to select whatever the roof system is that you're walking. It also allows you to select an image from your photo library, or even just take a photo while you're on site, and we can have it analyze. Now, it's funny, I'm utilizing this image. I just pulled a random image out of my photo library, and the idea is that we know that AI is able to make mistakes. It can hallucinate depending on, the outputs are only as good as the inputs that we give it. Now, looking at this image, it's a bit complex, right? There's some roofs in here, like other roofs in here. There's some buildings, there's foliage here in the background. And so like there's a chance that like it's not a clear shot of a deficiency. There's other things that might cause the AI to hallucinate. And so we built in what we call a confidence factor. It's like, how confident are you in what you found in your analysis? And so it gives you all of the line items that it found that need to be added in to this actual image. And so then you would take these findings, these line items, you would throw them into the repair calculator, and it would spit out your actual price for you. Okay? It would break down everything from all of your cost. It would break down your entire material list and all of that good stuff. So you can legitimately walk a roof, document what you found on the roof, utilize the identification tool if there's anything on the roof that you weren't able to identify, and build your quote all before you get in the truck and leave. Okay? In the world of service and maintenance, this is instrumental in being able to close deals quickly. When you leave that property, you get busy, you don't turn a quote in for days on end or even weeks on end. It's like the urgency is gone. And so that's part of our process, is like just speed to lead on every single opportunity. The last little tool I'll share with you guys here in this video is what we call the sales rep manual and our AI sales coach. So earlier in this video, I had mentioned that a downfall of commercial roofing businesses, even guys that are veterans of the commercial roofing space, is that they just typically have a handful of guys that act as those mercenaries that are going out and kind of doing their own thing. Then the company wonders why they feel the ebbs and the flows of these big projects, where it's like, hey, this month we had 4 projects come in, but then we don't have commercial projects coming in for like 2 more months, right? It's just a weird way of going after it. And so in order to get adherence to an actual simple process that any sales rep could easily follow, we created an acronym. And so you'll notice our logo at Commercial Roofer is a ladder. And it just so happened that we were able to make the word ladder work out for us as a sales process. Number one, the first letter is L, and that stands for lead generation. So we have this first chapter of the ladder sales rep field manual is all about the lead generation. The A is appointment prep. And I'm a firm believer that in the appointment, that is like one of the most critical times of the entire sales process, because you're really like setting the tone. And so there's 2 people involved in every sales appointment. We have the sales rep themselves, and then we also have the actual prospect. And so it would be crazy not to make sure that our sales rep is physically prepared and has all of their ducks in order, in alignment before they go run this appointment. But also, there's an old adage that is, an old saying that people say all the time, and it's that you can't lead a horse to water, or you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? It's been a long day. And I just believe that, like, fundamentally, that doesn't make sense in sales, because I believe you can lead a horse to water, and you can make it really likely that they do drink. In that scenario, as a horse, number one, you could salt the feed, you could put it in a controlled setting where you could crank up the temperature. You could withhold water for, certain amount of time, making it where it's very likely that it drinks because it's super thirsty, right? There are conditions that you can influence that would make it more likely that horse drinks. And sales is the same way, right? And it's not that we can make anyone do anything or that we would want to make them do anything, but a lot of times, like, we're solving real world problems as a sales rep, as a commercial roofing sales rep. And so shouldn't we teach these prospects, the maintenance managers, the building owners, the property managers, shouldn't we teach them how to think about their roof? Like, hey, if we just do a little bit of maintenance every single year, wouldn't it be likely that this roof lasts a little bit longer? This $1 million roof, wouldn't it be nice to keep that in the $1 million in our pocket for another 5 to 7 to 10 years, just because we put a little bit of money along the way into our roof? And then as roofers, like, we have the advantage of collecting that money, right? We get paid very handsomely for doing that maintenance. And then again, it's cyclical, because not only do we get paid along the way, but then again, the ultimate outcome is that we get to replace the roof. So this is a process where we focus on lead generation, prepping for the appointment, doing discovery, and asking the correct questions to understand what is the problem. Typically in the sales process, like, the roof leaking isn't the problem. What the roof is leaking on is probably more of the problem, right? We have tenants, we have merchandise, we have, employees trying to actually physically work in these areas, but they can't work because it looks like Niagara Falls over here. And so those are the pain points that we want to understand. And we also want to understand, like, who makes the decisions?
How do we make decisions at this organization? And all of the context that would allow you to know the timing and likelihood of that deal actually coming to fruition so that you know who to talk to, how to address the situation, and what's the highest likelihood service that they actually purchase from you. I already walked you guys through the second D, which is diagnosis. I walked you through all of our tools that we have, our toolkit for diagnosing. E stands for estimates and proposals. And then R is the fulcrum of the entire sales process, meaning that the entire direction that the sales process goes, like do they buy or do they not, ultimately relies on R. R stands for revenue and recycling, meaning that every time we diagnose a roof, we are going to find issues that we're going to find deficiencies that need to be repaired. We're going to be able to apply a grade to the roof system that will allow us to monetize that roof through a service. If we don't capture revenue, the first R, it's like, okay, no big deal, because that roof is not magically just going to, like, unfortunately for the building owners of the world, they cannot just like wave a magic wand over that roof, magically make the roof all better, right? It's not like a lizard that's going to regrow its tail. And so we know that when we walk that roof and we identify those issues, that is the best situation that roof's going to be in until somebody does some form of work to it, right? A repair, a restoration, or a replacement. So if we're not collecting revenue or we're not capturing revenue, we need to recycle the lead. We utilize a system called BAMFAM, meaning that we book a meeting from every meeting that we don't close. So if we don't close the deal today, we are booking a follow-up meeting and getting it on the calendar. Not like, hey, I'll follow up with you next Monday. I'm not gonna, hey, I'll follow up with you next week. It's like, no, dude, it's got to be pinned down to an exact day, an exact time, and the decision that needs to be made at that next meeting, right? And confirming that all parties can be there. And so what we do is we BAMFAM our way, we recycle that lead until the deal happens, right? Or until they tell us yes, no, or BAMFAM. That's the only outcomes from every appointment.
Look, I just want to be clear that when I started in the roofing industry, I obviously had none of these things. I didn't have the playbooks, AI wasn't around, I didn't have any of these systems or processes laid out. I just kind of figured it out. And you could absolutely do that too. There's plenty of guys that are trying to do that as we speak. But the reality is you don't have to. We have all of this stuff packaged up, but not only to give you the processes, the playbooks, the tools, and say like, here you go to figure it out, but we also support that community on a week-by-week basis in doing hands-on role plays, sales trainings, training on the AI tools, and all of the things to ensure that they get implemented into the day-to-day, because it's one thing to say, hey, we're gonna do this, but it's another thing to actually get your team to do it. So we make sure they know what to do, how to do it, when they should do it, and that we're there to actually support them, because a lot of times in the day-to-day, I'm sure as a business owner, you know what it's like to wear multiple hats and you don't always have the time to actually do that. If commercial isn't a focus for you, but you still run a roofing company, I would love to still connect. So just find me on social media. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn and all the places. I'm a complete nerd for this industry, and I just love jamming on anything business, private equity, tech in the roofing space, and I'd love to connect. Talk to you guys soon. I'll see you in the next video.